So, hello everybody. My name is Laura Olszewskis, and I'm here with Mrs. Reed, who is a English professor here at Keefe College and also works in the Writing Center as well. So, Mrs. Reed, you can introduce yourself if you would like.
Well, Laura's done a really nice job there. I do teach English, usually first year composition. I also do teach KC 101. And occasionally, if there's a need, I have taught graduate writing course as well. And I also teach the international students English course when we have that running, but that hasn't run in a couple of years because of the pandemic. And I do also work in the Writing Center. I'm a writing specialist, and so we work usually one-on-one with students, helping them with writing support. We've been working mainly virtually, of course, over the last year and a half, I guess it is, close to 2 years. So a lot of video conferences for writing or just written feedback. So I'm looking forward to the fall and being able to actually work one-on-one with students again. It's going to be really nice because that's my favorite way to work with a student.
Yeah, definitely this pandemic, it really pushes you to into a box of being really uncomfortable and having to really think on your feet and being able to make adjustments where you need them. So a lot of critical thinking, a lot of adjustments, a lot of transitioning and parts that maybe aren't your favorite to do, but you have to kind of figure it out. So with that, you definitely have a lot of background on teaching a variety of different students and providing different services whenever you can. So so my first question is what does critical thinking mean to you, and how does that concept apply to college?
Well, I first of all think that especially with the first year writing courses, we spend a lot of time working on critical thinking skills and learning that the word critical doesn't necessarily mean something bad, because like with so many words in the English language, there are multiple meanings, and we think of criticism as being negative. And really what we're talking about with critical thinking is just careful analysis and thinking about why you think the way you do about things. So, we focus in the writing courses on rhetorical analysis a lot, which is breaking down a piece of reading or writing into its component pieces and analyzing those pieces, and then how to transfer those skills into your own writing abilities. And so for my courses, it really is a huge component that very important aspect of what I teach is critical thinking and analysis.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Yeah. So with that, you teach a variety of different students, English classes, and with different majors. So how do you get them to engage in your class and the content and really engage in that critical thinking aspect?
Well, I do try to, as consistently as possible, talk about how the skills we're learning and practicing in the writing class apply to other courses that students have to take or are taking because they want to. How those same skills will apply in the workplace later on, or in getting a field period, or in a lot of those different areas that you have to be able to think critically to be successful in anything, really, to be successful as an occupational therapist or as a teacher or as a nurse or even a criminal justice person who's maybe thinking of going on to law school. Those same skills apply all across the board. And I think that sometimes students think, this is a writing course. This is dumb. I have to take it, and I just need to get through it. So I do really try to learn about my students, learn about what the various students' majors are or what their interests are. And we do that through writing activities and discussions and all sorts of different means. But in that way, I think that students do become interested, I hope. Most of them do, they seem to, having had you as a student. I think that showing them and demonstrating, how this will apply in a different situation other than just for this class makes it more palatable and more enjoyable for the students.
Yeah, and I always think that the most valuable classes are the ones that you can take with you to the next step and continue to build upon them. I know
Exactly.
I've taken things from your classes, and I've actually gone in and gotten a minor in English, and even there I'm using all the things that I use in my English classes about storytelling and making sure I appeal to the audience in any way that I can, with the language, with the emotion, with the music. I generally use that with my interviews that I am making for one of my field periods, and that is to really engage the audience. And so I do become a storyteller in my own sense, and I am able to just be able to tell people's story and really capture the audience when I can. So that's an awesome point to make, that any class that you take, any class that you're going into, and you might not think that you'll get any experience or any value from it. Definitely that's the challenge, is to try to find that value, because if you don't, that class isn't going to be worth it. But if you do, that class can definitely really inspire you to take those next steps. So that's a really great point. Yeah. So do you think that all questions are valuable? And if so, how do they apply to the learning process with students?
That's a really loaded question. You know, thinking critically about the question, obviously some questions might not be valuable, but I do try always, in my own classes at least, to encourage students to ask questions, and that no question is dumb unless someone else already asked it and I just answered it. That's my standard joke. You've heard it before. But a lot of times questions lead to discussion, and discussion leads to critical thinking and analysis. So you do need to ask questions. And the other thing that I like to point out to students is that if you are thinking of a question, probably 2 or 3 or even more other students are thinking that same question. Someone's got to be brave enough to ask it and get it out there. And then it does blossom usually into a good discussion and a good learning experience. So again, engaging everybody. And so I do think all questions are valuable.
And how do you really inspire students to ask questions? What are your main things that you find that, if they're nervous about asking a question, if they're unsure of how to answer or even ask that question, how do you really engage those students and inspire them to ask those questions and begin to asking?
Well, a lot of times I will ask questions myself, of course, and some classes are more energetic than others, just by virtue of the combination of students and personalities and all of that sort of thing. So sometimes it's more challenging than others to get students to engage, or I shouldn't even use the word engage, but to speak up because a lot of times students are engaged in listening, but just don't want to speak. If that's the case, then I usually try to just reframe what I'm saying in a different way to encourage somebody to make some sort of connection to what I am asking, because usually that's what it takes to get someone to speak, is to make that connection. And so if the way I'm asking something isn't getting that connection from anyone, then I try to find a different way to say it, or just frame it in a different way, put it in a different context to still elicit the information that I want to get from that student.
All right, wonderful. Yeah, that's awesome. And so I have one more question for you for this interview. And my last question is, what is one valuable aspect of college students should learn by the time they graduate?
I tell my students, and I'm sure you remember this, that I try to learn something new every day. I really enjoy learning new things. And I think that in order to do that, you have to be open-minded, and you have to be willing to accept other people's ways of thinking, and accept that it's okay to be wrong once in a while too, because we can't grow and learn if we can't accept being wrong once in a while. So I guess what I would say is that I would encourage everyone to try to be as open-minded as possible and as accepting of learning, accepting of other ideas, and that it's okay to not be right all the time. And that's how we grow as humans. And so, yeah, being open-minded and willing to accept others' ways of thinking, I think are very, very valuable.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge for the next 4 years for people coming in. I know for myself that it seems like a challenge in which for some might be super easy, and for others it might feel almost intangible. But definitely in the next few years for a lot of these students, you're going to grow. You're going to hit roadblocks and not be able to really understand, what am I supposed to do next, or kind of want to step back for a second and just say, no, I'm not going to continue with college, or I'm not going to, jump over this obstacle because we don't necessarily want to, and that's hard for us. But I mean, I'm going to be a senior this year. So yeah, it's definitely, your growing process is going to happen. You just got to kind of be open to it and got to really push through the hard parts. And that's definitely a challenge, but it's a good challenge to have. And it's a good all freshmen or new student coming into this college to have, because I think on our campus we're small enough to build a good community around us and to be able to really apply that challenge as much as possible. Even though we're small, we're still mighty. So yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this interview. It's wonderful to hear your perspectives on what it means to be a critical thinker and to ask questions. And I think you also give a good challenge to all of our incoming students, especially with being open-minded. That is definitely a challenge, but in itself, it's a wonderful experience once you start to really open yourself up to those new experiences. So yeah. Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.